As the workday comes to a close at American Telecasting Company, 26-year-old Julio Zamaron Jr. prepares to pack up his things.
I was a technician, and I was actually at the office setting up the gear that the guys were going to be needing the next day.
Julio, you have a phone call.
Oh, okay, thanks. Hello?
This is my friend Kevin.
Kevin? What's up?
I don't think I ever got a personal call at work, so I knew something was wrong.
What?
His friend is frantic. He's like, something terrible has happened. You got to go to your parents' house. You got to go right away.
Oh my God.
Everything all right?
I gotta go.
When I pulled up to the house, there were several police cars. There was an ambulance that was bringing my mother out. I really couldn't get too close to her at the time.
Sir, hold up.
That's my mom. What's going on?
He told me that, my parents were shot. The only thought that ran through my mind was seeing my parents and making sure they're okay. It was chaos because I could see my sisters crying on the side by the front door, my nephew crying.
What happened?
There's a lot of things to take in at once.
Across town, Lt.Joe Kenda is headed back to the station after a long day in court when he gets a page.
Go for Kenda.
And I knew what it was. It's what it always is. No one is asking me how I'm doing. No one wants to know if I want to go to lunch. That's Communications Center, Police Department, and something bad just happened.
Within minutes, Kenda arrives at the scene.
You have ambulances there. You have uniformed cruisers. So it's very, very busy. No one even noticed me till I was almost to the front door.
Hey, Lieutenant.
Hey, Adam. What a mess.
Yes, sir.
So what do we got?
We've got 2 adult victims, 1 male and 1 female. They both appear to be mid-50s.
They are Julio Zamaron Sr. and his wife, Guadalupe Zamaron. They have been shot once in the chest each with a large caliber handgun.
Julio and Guadalupe have been married for 34 years. They have 8 children and 8 grandchildren.
They're solid working class Americans who take care of each other and their family.
What's the status of the victims?
They're leaving in the ambulance, going to the hospital, but I'm sure they're going to pronounce them DOA.
Any witnesses?
Yeah, the whole family was in the house.
That's them right there?
Yes, sir.
I don't think you could find a more traumatizing event than watching a loved one die violently in front of you. There's nothing worse than that.
One look at the grieving Zamaron family convinces Kenda that they need time to recover before he questions them.
Some time is certainly better than no time. So rather than approach them, let me look at this crime scene first.
Where did the shooting take place?
Just inside in the living room.
Inside the Zamaron's small bungalow, Kenda finds evidence of a surprising number of occupants.
Any idea how many people live here?
Approximately 15 people, sir.
And their whole family?
Yes, sir.
My parents were very dedicated to the family. I mean, that's the way we were brought up. It's basically the only way I can say it is familia es primero. Families first. They need to stay with you. They need help. If you can provide it, you do it. You just can't leave your family.
That's where the bodies were found?
Yes, sir. Right over there.
Kenda finds 2 large blood stains in front of a couch and an adjacent easy chair.
That would indicate to me that they were sitting next to each other and slid out after being shot, thus leaving the blood on the floor.
If they were sitting, they were relaxing. They had no reason to believe that their lives were in danger. And so this was out of the blue.
Nothing's out of place. Nothing is disturbed. Whoever did this walked in here, shot 2 people, and walked right back out again. This is bang, bang, and goodbye. That suggests plan. Somebody knows what they're going to do before they come inside.
Any ballistics?
Yes, sir. Marker number 4.
The bullet looks like a .357 Magnum, which would explain the DOA. .357 Magnum describes a very high-energy, large-caliber bullet that is going to go through a human like a knife through a wedding cake. They are really, really devastating to humans.
Right next to the easy chair, Kenda finds a woman's purse.
All the way open. Now, every woman I know, my wife included, never leaves a purse open. The existence of that open purse indicates the possibility of robbery being part of this.
All right, thank you. I'm going to talk to the witnesses.
Yes, sir.
Have them come through.
When I walked back outside, I asked the family members to come forward and form a group around the porch area.
It's going to be important for me to talk to each one of you about what happened here today. I understand you're extremely distraught, and I don't blame you.
Julio and Guadalupe were the backbone of their large extended family.
Julio Sr. was retired in the United States Army. Guadalupe was a housekeeper.
Julio and Guadalupe, after all those years of marriage, were enjoying life with each other.
My dad, what made him happy was my mom. As long as she was smiling, he was okay. Like, take her out dancing. You could always tell that they had danced together for many years.
At this moment, you think, these are people that this isn't supposed to happen to. They work hard. They work all their life. They take care of their own. And they die like this, violently, in their own home. I can't bring back their loved ones, but I can certainly take their revenge for them on the person responsible. That I can do. So at this point in this investigation, we have a couple in their middle 50s who are shot to death in their own living room for no apparent reason at all.
An open purse found at the scene suggests robbery might be the motive. But Lt.Joe Kenda thinks it's unlikely to be the sole motive behind this cold-blooded execution.
Everything about this crime scene says personal. Somebody has a very specific reason directed completely at them and no one else. They had their choice of all the other people in this house. The only people dead are these two. So I don't know why yet. I intend to find out.
Several members of the Zamaron family witnessed the shooting and have now recovered enough to speak to Kenda. The first to come forward is a daughter named Lupe.
I know you're very upset, but I need you to help me understand what happened to your parents.
According to Lupe, she has been in an abusive marriage to a man named Gabriel Vasquez since she was 17 years old.
My sister and Gabriel had 3 kids together, 2 boys and a girl. But their relationship was always rocky. It was always abusive towards her.
Lupe explains that a few months back, she and Gabriel moved to Texas. But after a particularly violent encounter, Lupe had Gabriel arrested on domestic assault charges.
And when he went to jail, my dad drove down there. And he got me and the kids to come back here to live with them.
She is very relieved. When last she knew, Gabe's in jail. She thinks her problems are over. Everything's fine. A week later, the doorbell rings. And there he stands. Her heart drops through the floor.
What do you want?
Con tu permiso, Don Julio. Came to say I'm sorry.
He was respectful. He was pleasant. He wanted to see his children and his wife.
I know what I did was wrong, but I've changed. It will never happen again, I swear. I promise. Please, por favor, come home with me.
We're staying here with my family. Me and the children.
Well. Okay. Niños, adiós. Te amo mucho. Que te vaya bien.
Adiós. You know, I think he changed, and if he did, it was for the worse.
I said, tell me what you know about this shooting. Lupe tells me that her husband Gabriel Vasquez came back and shot and killed her parents in front of her in this house moments ago. Here is a man who's completely out of control of his emotions. He has a gun. He's obviously not afraid to use it. What if he decides to come back for the remainder of this family and kill them too? Is he capable of that? Of course he is.
Lupe gives Kenda a detailed description of Gabe. And as night falls, a search team scours the area in search of him. But the canvassing effort turns up no sign of Gabriel. Shortly after midnight, Kenda tells his men to stand down.
In my opinion, it's too dangerous to continue. We'll find him, just not tonight, and not in the dark, and risk somebody getting shot.
The following morning, Kenda puts word out to the press that an armed killer is on the loose. That decision quickly pays dividends.
This is Kenda. Okay.
Dispatch tells Kenda that an anonymous caller has reported that Gabriel Vasquez was seen with a man named Slim just prior to the shooting.
And he gives us an address on Mallard Drive.
I'd appreciate the help. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anonymous. We'll take it.
20 minutes later, Kenda arrives at the Mallard Drive address provided by the anonymous tipster.
Can I help you?
Are you Slim?
Yeah.
When's the last time you saw Gabriel Vasquez?
Slim saw him yesterday afternoon, just before the murder.
Came by, we had a few drinks, played some cards. You going down, Batu.
Man, you talk too much, man.
Man, play the cards, man. Let's go. You taking so long. Come on.
Man, you keep rushing me, I'm gonna take you out like I'm gonna take them out.
Whatever, Batu. Who you gonna take out, man?
You know?
Play the cards.
My wife's parents.
Slim says he's kind of half listening to this, and they're playing cards. Finally, Gabe says to Slim,
messed them up.
Slim kind of ignores that too until Gabe produces a handgun out of his pocket.
Messed them up real bad.
It's a .357 Magnum. And when he sees the gun, Slim's attitude changes.
What you gonna do with that? Man, put it away.
Gabe picks up Slim's bottle of vodka, takes a couple of hits.
Put it away so we can play this game, man.
Puts the gun in his pocket.
Hey, man, where you going, man? Let's play the cards.
And walks out the door.
Have you seen or heard from him since then?
Nah.
Slim informs Kenda that Gabe has been staying at the Red Cross shelter downtown.
So we go to the Red Cross shelter, we show his picture. You know? Oh, yeah, we know. Yeah, Gabe the laborer. That's what they know him as. You seen him lately?
No, I haven't, but one of the residents said he saw him earlier down by the train yard.
Any idea why he was there?
I believe he said he was going to hop a train to Mexico.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that changes things. Thank you.
So now, for the first time, we have a solid lead on what Gabe's plan is. We still don't have Gabe, but we know his plan to escape the jurisdiction.
If Gabriel Vasquez is bound for Mexico, then Kenda's chances of catching him are growing slimmer by the second.
Trains run constantly through Colorado Springs, both day and night. If Gabriel has made it to Mexico, I do not believe we will ever find him. I have a 1% chance of finding him in Mexico. 1%. If he's in Mexico, he might as well be on the moon. We're investigating the death of two people who you would not think would ever fall victim to such a crime. Julio and Guadalupe Zamaran. We've identified the perpetrator, Juan Gabriel Vasquez. We now know that he's in the rail yards area last seen, but we know his plan is to jump a train to Mexico, and maybe he already did.
With the clock ticking, Kenda's team races to the rail yard.
All right, guys, we gotta search all these cars. You could be any one of them. Just remember, he's probably armed, so be careful. Let's go.
As time wears on, we're not finding anything. We're not finding anybody. I'm feeling pretty miserable. I'm thinking that Gabe is gone, man. He's in the wind, and I hear two officers' voices.
You, under the blanket, come out. Come out now. Okay. Come out. Okay.
Oh, music to my ears. And I run in that direction, and they have him.
Don't shoot me your hand. Don't shoot.
No train to Mexico for him. He's going to get a police car ride to headquarters.
Once back at the station, Kenda interrogates Gabe Vasquez.
Gabriel, the reason why you're here is because you're being accused of shooting and killing Julio Zamorano Sr. and Guadalupe Zamorano.
I know. I shot them both.
And why'd you do that? Good. Nothing else to do that day? Oh, they had it coming. They deserved it.
What did they do to deserve it?
They stole my money. They make lies about how I abused my wife, my children. It got me arrested in Texas. And none of it was true.
At the end of this diatribe about how it's their fault, Gabe says, but the last straw with them is when they took my family away from me and wouldn't give it back.
They need to pay for what they did. That's why I went over there.
What happened when you went over there?
Eso. El león. Dale el peluche.
Hola, Lupe. Hello?
Lorenzo, what are you doing here?
I came to see the kids.
You can't see the kids.
Why not?
Show them, Lupe.
Show me what?
But when Gabe gets there, he's confronted with a court order.
Wait, what is this?
It says he cannot be near his children, he cannot be near his wife, because he's now been duly served with a restraining order.
What is this?
That's the law. You need to stay away from my daughter and her children. You need to get out of here, Gabe, now.
So Julio Sr. and Guadalupe have taken legal steps to exclude him from these children and from his wife. And he becomes incensed.
You can't do this.
Why not?
It's my family.
Yeah, not anymore.
My children,
not
my wife.
anymore. Look, get out of here before you go back to jail.
He had a gun in his pocket, and when his worst fear is presented to him in writing, emotion takes over. There's no thought anymore. Now it's just rage.
You did this! Sí, tú lo has hecho, sí. ¿Y qué más tú tienes? Sí. Dale mi cosa, escribe now. You did this. Sí. Sí. You did this too. Sí. You did this.
He pulls the trigger again and kills her. Then he says he's going to get back the money they never paid him. He takes what money he finds and runs out the front door. What Gabe did is a completely insane act, of course, but it's typical for someone who has an abusive personality. No one matters except him.
With Gabe Vasquez's statement in tow, Kenda is able to charge him with 2 counts of first-degree murder. Before trial, Gabriel pleads guilty to the lesser charge of second-degree murder. He is sentenced to 85 years in prison.
My dad always taught me not to hate, but I wish that the proper justice would have been able to be taken upon them.
Trauma has a really destructive effect on family structure. A lot of times it all just starts to unravel.
It just, tore our family apart. We kind of split up. That center focus was gone.
Julio Sr. and Guadalupe worked hard all their lives. They took care of their own. What happens? They pay for it with their lives. Proof, once again, the thing that frightens people most. Life is random. You never know where the problem is going to come from. But come it does. Come it does.
Coming up, the most horrifying crime of Kenda's career.
I am amazed at the number of instruments that have apparently been used to inflict whatever damage has been done to this person. This is the result of a deranged mind.
It's a cloudy Sunday morning in Colorado Springs, and Lt.Joe Kenda is looking forward to a rare day off with his family.
It was about 9:30 in the morning, and I was walking down the driveway to get the Sunday paper. I just pick it up, I take it out of the bag, and I'm savoring the thought of reading, and I hear Kathy's voice.
Joe, they're on the phone.
I always know who they are. And I'm thinking maybe I could read this paper on Wednesday, because I don't think I'm going to read it today.
This is Kenda.
Dispatch informs Kenda that a 911 call came in reporting a murder. When police responded, they found a mutilated body.
Mutilated?
Oh, swell. Okay, well, we're going to come over and look at that.
Within the hour, Kenda is on the scene.
When I pulled up to that apartment building, I noticed one officer is leaning on the railing outside the entrance to the building. And he looks like he's either been sick or he's about to get sick.
You all right?
I don't know.
Apparently, this may be beyond the pale of mutilation. These are experienced policemen, and they are upset by what they have seen. So I know whatever this is going to be unpleasant.
So where's the body?
It's in the bedroom.
Kenda braces himself and makes his way inside.
I see a blood-soaked white sheet covering up human remains. There is an enormous amount of blood around the body that's under this sheet.
Did we put the sheet there?
No, sir, it was already there. We pulled it back, checked for vitals, and we put it back in place.
It's that bad?
Worst I've ever seen, sir.
My first thought was maybe I don't want to look under this sheet, but that option is not available to me.
Before Kenda pulls back the sheet, he surveys the area surrounding the victim.
I am amazed at the number of instruments that I find around this body that have apparently been used to inflict whatever damage has been done to this person. There are knives, a potato peeler, scissors, a screwdriver, and a table leg that had been torn off of a kitchen table.
As CSIs document the scene, Kenda searches the rest of the apartment.
In the bathroom, the toilet is backed up. The water is crimson with blood.
We need to get a plumber here to see what's in there.
Someone's on the way, Lieutenant.
Something has been put in this toilet. We don't know what. So I return back out to the bedroom.
All right, let's see what we got going on into there.
The crime scene tech lifts the sheet and immediately turns away.
Oh my God.
When the sheet is lifted, it is the body of a female, apparently in her late 20s, who has been disemboweled. There is no skin or epidermis present. Her right breast is not present. She has, by count, over 100 stab wounds. This is mutilation beyond the pale. The cutting injuries to her chest are post-mortem. You can tell that because they're non-reactive. There is no blood other than gravity bleeding. A dead body doesn't bleed. Post-mortem injury not designed to cause the death of the victim, not in a wild, frenzied rage, but in a morbid, perverse, curious way.
In the kitchen, one of Kenda's men finds a purse.
Found her ID, Lieutenant.
Herta Caraway.
Her name is Herta Caraway. Her date of birth indicates that she is presently 29 years of age. It shows the address as being the address we're standing in. So, in my mind, we have made identification of this person.
Lieutenant, plumber's here.
All right, then.
He takes one look in the toilet and he's about ready to throw up because of the amount of blood in the water.
Listen, I know this isn't your run-of-the-mill service call, but I need to know what's in that toilet. So once you remove the toilet, you can step aside.
You don't have to stay for the discovery. We very carefully lift this toilet off of the sewer pipe.
There you go.
Oh, Jesus.
We find the victim's right breast in the drainage area of the toilet.
Oh.
This is obviously done by someone who is deeply sick. This is not something I've ever seen.
Kenda's next step is to make contact with the victim Herta Caraway's relatives, which means he also has to notify them of her death.
I have no intention of describing what has been done to their daughter. I'm going to say that Herta is no longer alive. It is less harsh than saying anything else.
Headquarters tracks down a name and address for the victim's parents, Earl and Maria Tate.
Mrs. Tate?
Earl? Come down here.
I have learned over the years, just tell them. Don't beat around the bush. Don't allow them to agonize and get even more upset. Just tell them.
I'm very sorry to inform you that your daughter, Herta, is no longer living.
Maria's eyes rolled back in her head, and she passed out. I called for medical. They responded.
I think she's gonna be all right. She just needs a few minutes.
Can you tell me about Herta and the people in her life?
She liked to be by herself. She liked to be alone. She was always like that.
Can you think of anyone that would want to harm her?
Harm? Not really. I do know she was having some kind of problems with her ex-husband.
According to Earl, Herta met her husband just over a year ago.
They dated for a very short period of time, and they got married very quickly after they met.
But Earl tells Kenda that the marriage ended abruptly.
She made the choice to leave him, and she moved into this apartment on Murray to live alone. My interest is now maxed. Who is the ex-husband? And more importantly, where is he right now? I'm investigating the death of 29-year-old Herta Caraway, who who has been brutally murdered, and then post-mortem mutilation took place. An absolutely awful crime. I've learned from her father that she left her husband because of problems. What kind of problems are we having with this guy?
Can you tell me what his name is?
His name is Peter Caraway. He had mental problems. It caused her to leave him.
Now that got my undivided attention. I think back to that crime scene that has mental illness written all over it. And now finding him immediately is critical.
Do you happen to know where Peter is?
No, I don't.
And did you have contact with any friends or family that you know of?
Mr. Tate recalls that Peter has a mother whose name is Ruth Foshee, and she lives on the west side of Colorado Springs.
Lieutenant Kenda to dispatch.
Go for dispatch.
I need you to run the name Ruth Foshee and get me an address.
That's the woman who made the 911 call.
What? Well, that's who called, a woman named Ruth Foshee. She obviously has knowledge of this event. She told the police they better go to Herda's apartment because Herda is in there dead. So how exactly does Ruth know that?
Mrs. Foshee, do you know why we're here?
Yeah, Peter. I knew something like this was going to happen.
Why do you say that?
He's been diagnosed with acute paranoid schizophrenia.
People like Peter who suffer from schizophrenia, they hear voices, they have trouble dealing with normal world day to day.
When he takes his meds, he's okay, but he forgets, and it gets really, really bad.
When they stop taking that medication, they dive deeper and deeper and deeper into delusionary thought, hallucinations, and completely lose contact with reality.
Ruth, we know you called 911 about your son. Will you tell us why you made that call?
Ruth says that morning, her son pulls up in front of her house on his motorcycle.
His hands were cut and bleeding.
This is a woman who understood when he was doing things he shouldn't be doing. So when he arrived with cuts on his hands, she began asking him,
What happened to your hands, Peter?
I cut it on the bike.
I didn't believe him. I know him well enough. I knew he was lying. Peter, what have you done? Peter, look at me.
She keeps pressing the point. He finally looked at his mother, looked her right in the eye.
Herta. I had to kill her.
Oh my God, no. Peter, no.
I had to do it, Mom.
No.
I'm sorry.
No. Oh.
She stands there in shock and watches Peter drive away on his motorcycle.
You know where Peter is right now?
No. He said he was going to leave. He said something about Texas. He has a cousin in Texas. And he left on the motorcycle, so he could be heading there.
Thank you for your help.
So now we absolutely know who we're looking for. We also know that Peter Caraway is a fugitive from justice.
Kenda puts out a bolo in Colorado and Texas for Peter Caraway. 3 hours later, he gets a hit.
This is Kenda.
We get a phone call from Vega, Texas. And they explain that this individual goes to a convenience store on a motorcycle.
Can I help you?
He's a big guy. He's kind of scary looking because he's so disconnected.
Gas.
Thank you.
Peter goes back out, puts $1's worth of gas in the pipe. Comes back in, gives her another $1.
Dollar. Gas.
she's had enough of him. She calls the police. And they go over and see who this cat is. And who they find is one each Peter Caraway.
He looked like to be about 7 foot tall, but turned out he was only 6'5", but he just really looked like he was fighting mad. So I said, do you have any identification?
Yes.
Where?
It's in my shirt pocket.
So I said, with 2 fingers, very slowly, pull your ID out. And if you pull out anything different than that, I'm gonna kill you right where you stand. And he reached in and he pulled out his identification, and I said, put it on the hood of the car.
The officers run Peter's identification.
Wanted out of Colorado for murder. Place your hands behind your head and interlock your fingers. Won't pat you down for weapons.
And it's over. They have Caraway by the throat.
Kenda sends 2 detectives down to Texas to bring Peter back to Colorado Springs.
We now have Peter Caraway in our hands, as crazy as he is, and he is as crazy as a bedbug. There's no question about that.
Peter, we're here to talk about your ex-wife, Herta.
Oh, yeah. Herta.
What do you remember about Herta?
Well, you see, I had to get rid of her.
Why'd you have to get rid of her, Peter?
Because she was trying to kill me with kindness.
Excuse me? Well, you know, she was being too nice to me. That was scary to me. No, Peter, I think the scary person in this room would be you.
Unable to elicit a coherent statement from Peter, Kenda can only surmise what happened when Peter showed up at Herta's apartment the night he killed her.
Is he off his medication? Did he have another delusion? Did he suffer another hallucination? Who knows? Something brings him there.
I know what you've been doing.
What are you talking about?
Something goes wrong between he and her.
Kenda believes that after cornering Herta in the bedroom, Peter bludgeoned her with the table leg. And stabbed her over 100 times.
Once she's dead, then we have this macabre curiosity effect of him trying to decide what makes her to work. And then maybe he decides if he cuts her up in small enough pieces, he can flush her down the toilet. Who knows what he's thinking?
Why'd you kill her, Peter?
I just told you. She's trying to kill me with kindness.
Amid his otherwise baffling replies, Peter Caraway does make one lucid point that seals his fate.
Please, I'm begging you. Don't tell my mother.
He was very concerned that his mother would be distressed if she found out what he'd done.
At trial, Peter Caraway pleads guilty to 1 count of second-degree murder and a crime of violence.
The obvious question is, why couldn't he plead insanity? It's because in Colorado, the insanity defense is very simple. Do you know the difference between right and wrong? That's the only test.
In the court's eyes, at the time of the murder, Peter knew what he was doing was wrong.
He doesn't want his mother to know what he did. He flees the jurisdiction. All sorts of things say that he knew what he did was wrong. Insanity would have never worked for him. Never worked. Not in Colorado. It will in some states, but not this one.
The judge sentences Peter Caraway to 48 years in the Colorado State Penitentiary.
I personally believe that humans are innately violent. It's something in our nature that's been true for 1 million years. Mental illness provides a gateway for our violent past to come forward. This is why humans are the most dangerous animal on this planet. They can think.
A single shoe lies on the wet pavement like a question nobody wants to answer. Black leather, heel scuffed, the kind of shoe you wear when you still believe you'll make it home before midnight. Streetlight glare beads on the toe, rain turning the world into glass. The Thames is only a few blocks away, breathing cold and steady. And somewhere in London, in the year 2007, a woman steps out of her life, so cleanly it's as if she's been erased with a blade. It begins on a Tuesday that looks harmless on paper. Commuters jam the escalators at Bank Station. Phones ring. Coffee spills. Taxi tires hiss through puddles and exhaust hangs in the air like a bad habit. In a narrow flat above a corner shop in Clerkenwell, a kettle clicks off. A woman, 31, sharp cheekbones, hair pinned back in a hurry, scrolls through her voicemail and doesn't smile at any of it. Her name is Leah Marston. She works in accounts for a mid-sized firm near Holborn, the kind of job that turns hours into invoices and days into spreadsheets. No headlines. No enemies. No dramatic boyfriend waiting outside with flowers and a grudge. Just routine, and the quiet pride of someone who pays rent on time. Leah locks her door. She checks it twice, habit, not fear. She carries a tote bag with a notebook, a pack of gum, a paperback bent at the spine. She wears that shoe pair that later becomes evidence. She takes the same route she always takes, the same shortcut past the small square where office workers smoke and pretend they aren't tired. A neighbor sees her in the stairwell, nods, registers nothing unusual. A shopkeeper remembers her buying a bottle of water. Then London swallows her. By 6:14 p.m., she is captured on a grainy CCTV camera outside a newsagent near Chancery Lane. The timestamp burns bright in the corner of the footage like a countdown. Leah pauses, adjusts her bag strap, glances left as if listening for someone calling her name. She steps forward. The camera catches the last clear image of her face, alert, distracted, undecided. Then she moves out of frame. She does not appear on the next camera. She does not tap her Oyster card at any gate. She does not call anyone. She does not show up for dinner with her sister in Islington, a dinner she confirmed that morning with a short text, "See you at 8x. At 8:27 p.m., her sister, Hannah, sends another text. No response. At 9:03 p.m., she calls. It rings until voicemail. At 10:18 p.m., she calls again and hears a click, an abrupt end, like the phone has been turned off mid-ring. A cold shiver crawls up the spine of every person who's ever waited for a missing call to become a tragedy. The missing person report is filed just after midnight. London police, tired and cautious, ask the first questions that always sound like blame. Did she have a history of disappearing? Any relationship problems? Any mental health issues? Drugs? Debt? The answers come back clean. No. 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 Leah is not the type to vanish. Leah is the type to apologize if she's late. Leah is the type to bring receipts. In the first hours, the city still believes in simple explanations. A stolen phone. A missed train. A spontaneous night out. But the next morning, her desk at work sits untouched. Her bank account is still. Her email auto-reply is not turned on. Her landlord reports she never came home. The air shifts. The missing becomes heavier. The word abduction starts to hover in conversations like smoke. Detectives begin with the obvious, the last confirmed sighting. That CCTV image is printed, pinned to boards, slid across tables. Officers canvass the streets around Chancery Lane, knocking on doors, asking about screams, arguments, a woman in a black coat walking too fast. London gives them what London always gives, fragments. A man recalls a woman matching her description arguing with someone near a bus stop, but he can't remember the face. A bartender thinks he saw her in a pub off Fleet Street, but the lighting was low and he serves hundreds. A taxi driver says a woman got into his cab and asked for King's Cross, then changed her mind and got out 2 streets later. None of it locks into place. None of it holds. Then the first physical clue surfaces, small and ridiculous and terrifying all at once, a shoe. Found by a street cleaner near a service entrance behind an office building, not far from the last camera that caught Leah's face. One shoe. Not a pair. A single black heel, damp and grit-streaked, sitting where it shouldn't be. It is hers. The size matches. The wear pattern matches. And the scene it implies is too vivid to ignore. Someone moving quickly, someone losing grip, a foot yanked, a stumble, a struggle. People don't casually drop a shoe in the middle of a city and continue their evening as normal. A shoe isn't lost, it's left behind. The police sweep the area. They find no blood. No torn fabric. No fingerprints worth keeping. London is a place designed to smear evidence with 1,000 strangers. Rain cleans the streets like a cruel janitor. A city of cameras somehow turns into a city of blind spots. The shoe goes into an evidence bag, sealed with plastic and hope, and everyone pretends that means progress. They dive into Leah's life with the sharp hunger of a case that refuses to stay polite. Phone records. Emails. Bank statements. Her last card purchase. A sandwich and a coffee at 12:11 p.m. Her last call. A 2-minute conversation with a colleague about a missing file. Her last text, to her sister, cheerful and ordinary. No secret lover. No sudden transfers. No ticket purchases. No online searches that hint at escape. Leah's world is painfully normal, and that is what makes her disappearance feel like an insult. Monsters are supposed to leave mess. Hannah sits with detectives in an interview room that smells faintly of stale tea. She tells them about Leah's routines, her careful nature, her fear of being a burden. She tells them about their mother calling every Sunday, about Leah's habit of writing lists for everything, about the way Leah always walked with purpose, as if being lost was a moral failure. Hannah's voice cracks when she says, "She wouldn't do this to me." That sentence lands like a weight. Because it isn't just a sister pleading. It's an argument against the easiest explanation, voluntary disappearance. Leah didn't vanish because she wanted to. Leah vanished because something happened to her. The press catches the scent. A missing woman in central London, a shoe found near the last sighting, CCTV gaps. This is the kind of story that grows teeth. Mystery woman vanishes after work, one tabloid screams. London's new nightmare, another suggests, as if the city needs more. Photos of Leah appear everywhere, smiling at a birthday party, holding a glass of wine, hair down, eyes bright. Those pictures do what they always do. They turn a private person into a public symbol. They invite strangers to imagine her in their own lives. They make the fear contagious. Tips flood in. Hundreds. Then thousands. Some are earnest. Some are cruel. Some are wrong in ways that waste days. A woman calls to say she saw Leah at Heathrow boarding a flight. Another claims Leah is living under a bridge near Waterloo. A man insists Leah was taken by a group in a van. But vans are everywhere in London. Groups are everywhere. The city becomes a stage where anyone can project a story. Detectives track the van claim anyway. They pull traffic camera feeds. They scan registration plates. They search for patterns, vehicles looping through the same streets, stopping where they shouldn't, moving like predators. They find nothing that holds. Not because nothing happened, but because too much happens in London at any given minute for the truth to stand out without help. 3 days after Leah disappears, the case turns colder. Her phone pings once, briefly, connecting to a mast in Whitechapel at 3:42 a.m. It's not enough to triangulate. It's not enough to trace. It's a cruel flicker, a heartbeat on a monitor that immediately flatlines. Detectives debate what it means. Is it the phone being turned on by someone else? A dying battery catching a signal? A deliberate taunt? Hannah hears about the ping and clings to it like a rope. If the phone connected, Leah could still be alive. The mind grabs any scrap of possibility and calls it faith. Police search along the route between Chancery Lane and Whitechapel, as if the city itself might cough up an answer. They check CCTV again, slower, frame by frame. They widen the net, pulling footage from side streets, alleyways, storefronts, office lobbies. The process is brutal. Hours of mundane movement. Thousands of faces. Every second a chance to miss the one moment that matters. A detective spots a woman in a similar coat, pauses the video, zooms, watches the pixelated figure turn, and it isn't Leah. The disappointment is physical. It makes shoulders sag. It makes coffee taste like ash. In the second week, divers are called to the Thames. It's procedure, they say. It's not a conclusion. But everyone knows what the river means. The Thames is not water, it's history, it's weight, it's the place London has always hidden what it doesn't want to see. Divers go down in murk that eats light. They feel along the bottom with gloved hands, touching shopping trolleys, broken bottles, mud that swallows. They find nothing. And somehow that doesn't feel like relief. It feels like the mystery tightening its grip. Friends hold a candlelight vigil in a small park. Faces glow in the flames tremble. People whisper prayers and theories. Someone pins a note to a tree, "Come home, Leah." Cameras film the candles, because grief sells when it's tidy. Hannah stands rigid, eyes hollow, as if she's afraid that if she blinks, her sister's face will vanish from her mind the way she vanished from the street. The crowd disperses, and London goes back to being London, because it always does. But something has changed. A crack in the illusion of safety. A collective awareness that you can be here 1 second and gone the next, and the city won't even notice until someone loves you loudly enough to demand answers. Detectives begin looking for patterns outside Leah's life, because inside it there is nothing to grab. Other reports. Other disappearances. Other women last seen near transport hubs, near business districts, near places where crowds provide cover. They consult databases. They call other precincts. They compare timelines. The word serial appears in briefings and makes the room feel smaller. But London is also a city of coincidences. 2 disappearances can exist without a connection. The mind wants a monster because a monster can be hunted. Randomness cannot. They revisit Leah's last known path and notice the detail everyone missed at first: the angle of her glance on the CCTV. She looked left, not toward traffic, not toward a shop window. Toward a side street that leads into a service alley, an ugly corridor of bins and locked doors and shadows even in daylight. A place where a person can be pulled out of sight in seconds. Detectives walk that alley, stepping over damp cardboard, staring at the brick walls like they might still hold echoes. They measure distances. They check sight lines. They imagine a hand clamping over a mouth, the sudden pivot of a body, the muffled scuffle lost under city noise. They imagine it because they have to. The case demands imagination in the absence of facts. A witness emerges, a security guard who worked nights at a nearby building. He comes forward late, hesitant, ashamed of how ordinary the memory felt at the time. He says he heard a brief shout around 6:20 p.m., female, sharp, cut off quickly. He thought it was drunk office workers. He thought it was nothing. The detective's pen scratches across paper and stops, and in that pause is the terrible distance between nothing and everything. The guard can't give a description. He didn't see anything. He only heard the sound and chose to ignore it. Now he sits with that choice like a stone. The shoe, the missing CCTV, the phone ping, the half-heard shout, these become the pillars of a case built on absence. Detectives pull Leah's social circle apart gently at first, then more aggressively as weeks pass. Colleagues are asked about office politics, about who stayed late, about who watched Leah too closely. An ex-boyfriend is questioned, his alibi checked, his phone records examined until even he begins to look unsure of his own innocence. A co-worker, who once had a crush on her, is brought in, sweating, offended, terrified. People learn how quickly normal can be reframed as possible. The investigation spreads, and with it spreads suspicion, like ink in water. And still, London offers nothing solid. No body. No ransom. No verified sighting. No confession. Leah's absence becomes a presence. It hangs over Hannah's flat like a fog. It seeps into family conversations, into holidays, into birthdays where an extra chair sits empty and nobody knows what to do with the silence. Posters fade on lampposts, rain washing the ink until Leah's face becomes a ghost of a face, eyes and mouth blurring into the paper. The city moves on, but the case does not move with it. It stays behind, lodged in the cracks, a reminder that the line between routine and catastrophe is thinner than anyone wants to admit. Somewhere, in an evidence locker, that single shoe waits in darkness, sealed away, holding the shape of a foot that no longer has a place to go, and every time a detective opens the file, the same question rises, sharp, simple, brutal. How does a person disappear in the middle of one of the most watched cities on earth, leaving behind nothing but a scuffed heel and a silence that won't stop ringing? The shoe sits under fluorescent light, lonely in a clear bag, and it starts doing what missing people always do when they're reduced to objects. It makes everyone around it talk louder, move faster, and lie to themselves about how close they are to the truth. The lab tech turns it over with tweezers, finds grit embedded in the tread, a smear of oily black along the heel that doesn't belong to rainwater or street filth, and in that tiny stain London suddenly feels like a machine room instead of a city. All pipes and service corridors and places built for people to pass through without being seen. The detective watching the examination doesn't blink. He's thinking about that alley behind the office building, the bins, the locked doors, the way sound dies between brick walls, and his thinking about how a person can be dragged 10 meters and vanish as if the pavement itself opened up and swallowed her whole. They start with the geography, because geography doesn't forget even when witnesses do. They walk the route again, this time with a map spread across the bonnet of an unmarked car, marking CCTV positions like a constellation with missing stars. One camera catches Leah at 6:14. Another, 2 streets over, should have caught her at 6:16 if she kept walking straight. It didn't. A third points toward a side street, too high, too angled, blocked by scaffolding. A fourth is installed above a loading bay, and the footage from that one is corrupted, freezing every 12 seconds like the city itself is stuttering. They request the raw file, the original, the untouched data. The building manager shrugs and says the system is old. The technician says the hard drive sometimes glitches. The detective hears sometimes and translates it into conveniently. Then the shoe's oily smear comes back with a preliminary note, possible lubricants, industrial grade, the kind used on metal joints and mechanical hinges. Not proof. Not a smoking gun. But it's a scent. It points toward a place where people don't wear perfume, they wear gloves. Toward service entrances, maintenance doors, utility tunnels, loading docks. Toward the parts of London that exist beneath the London everyone sees. So they widen the search, not outward, downward. They contact Transport for London, they ask about maintenance works in the Chancery Lane area that week, about access points, about contractors, about who had keys to what. They get spreadsheets, schedules, signatures, and the bitter taste of bureaucracy. There were works nearby, yes, routine electrical inspection in an underground substation, a crew replacing cable conduits in a service tunnel that runs like a vein under the streets. There were also building renovations, scaffolding, delivery trucks coming and going like anonymous beasts. The detective circles 3 items on a list and feels nothing but suspicion and fatigue. Lists don't bleed. Lists don't confess. A new detail rises from Leah's phone records, and it hits like a flick of light off a knife. At 6:02 p.m., 12 minutes before that CCTV image, Leah received a call. It lasted 13 seconds. It came from an unregistered pay-as-you-go number. No name. No billing address. Just digits. 13 seconds is not a conversation, it's a signal. A prompt. A trigger. The detective leans back, eyes fixed on the printout, as if staring hard enough might summon the voice that spoke on the other end. They try to trace it anyway. They request cell tower logs. They cross-reference purchase locations for that SIM batch. They ask shops for CCTV of the day the SIM might have been bought, weeks earlier, months earlier. It's like chasing smoke through an open window. Every path leads to a crowded counter, a hand exchanging coins, a face turned away. Pay-as-you-go was built for privacy. Now it's the perfect mask. The press hears about the mysterious call and turns it into fuel. Headlines sharpen. Secret call before disappearance. Did Leah meet someone? Questions become accusations. Hannah begins to see strangers' eyes on her in supermarkets, the way people look at someone they think they understand, because they read a headline. Friends stop asking, "How are you?" and start asking, "Any news?" as if she's responsible for the existence of news. She keeps her phone on the table when she sleeps, screen up, brightness high, because hope is a violent thing and it refuses to let her rest. Police put out another appeal, and the city responds with more fragments. A woman who works at a cafe near Fleet Street says she remembers Leah coming in around 6:30, flustered, asking for a bottle of water. She remembers because Leah's hands were shaking. The detective asks about her coat, her hair, the tote bag. The woman hesitates, then nods. She's not sure. Memory is a liar, especially when the world tells you there's a missing person and demands you become part of the story. Still, the cafe has CCTV. They pull it. They sit in a dark room and watch hours of people buying drinks, laughing, leaving crumbs. At 6:31, a woman enters, hair pinned back, coat similar, tote bag on her shoulder. She looks up, just for a second, toward the corner where the camera hides, and the detective's throat tightens. The image is a blur, but there's something in the posture, the angle of the chin, the quickness of the movement. Then the woman turns away, and the blur becomes anyone. The detective rewinds and watches again, and each time Leah is both there and not there, a ghost in pixel form. They move to witness canvassing around the cafe, because if she was there, someone may have followed. Someone may have waited. A delivery driver mentions a dark saloon parked awkwardly near the curb, engine running, windows fogged. A cyclist remembers having to swerve around it. But the descriptions clash. One says black. Another says navy. One says a man smoking inside. Another says no one was visible. London is a city of cars. Cars are a city's camouflage. The investigation starts to press against its own boundaries. Detectives argue. One wants to focus on abduction, force, opportunity, rapid removal. Another wants to consider an arranged meeting, voluntary step into the blind spot. A third sits silent, staring at the map, thinking about the shoe and that 13-second call, and the one phone ping in Whitechapel like a flare that went up and died. They're all right, which means none of them are. They feel the case trying to slip away into myth. Then the first serious suspect appears, not because he is proven, but because he is plausible, and plausibility is what you build when certainty isn't available. His name is Graham Lyle, a contractor who worked maintenance on several buildings around the area. Mid-40s. Quiet. Skilled with locks. Has access badges and keys. A record from years back, nothing violent, but a pattern of boundaries ignored, a complaint about harassment from an ex-colleague that never became a charge. He lives alone. His neighbors describe him as polite in the way people describe someone they do not know at all. Police bring him in for interview and he arrives calm, almost bored, as if he expected this. He says he was working that evening. He names the job site, the times, the crew. He says he didn't know Leah. He says he's never been down the alley behind the office building. The detective hears that last denial and feels the heat of it. Never been there. A contractor in central London claiming he's never used a service alley. It's too clean. They check his alibi. The crew confirms he was on site until 6 o'clock, then says he left, said he had something to do. The something was never explained. A gap forms in the timeline like a crack in ice. It's not enough for an arrest. It's enough for obsession. They search his flat with a warrant and find what you always find, ordinary chaos. Tools. Old receipts. Takeaway menus. A radio on the kitchen counter. Nothing that screams kidnapping. Nothing with Leah's name. But they do find a stash of disposable SIM cards, still in their packaging. Contractors use them, he says. For work. For clients. For privacy. The detective feels the weight of that 13-second call pressing down harder. They send the SIMs for analysis, check numbers, cross-reference tower hits. And the first wave comes back. One of the numbers in his stash matches the number that called Leah at 6:02 p.m. It's not conclusive proof. SIMs are sold in batches, swapped, stolen, passed around. But it's a thread, and in this case threads are gold. Graham denies it. He says he never called Leah. He says someone must have used the SIM, must have borrowed it, must have taken it. He offers names. He offers shrugs. He offers the kind of defensiveness that can belong to guilt, or to someone being wrongly accused. The detective watches his hands during the interview and sees something small. The way his thumb rubs the knuckle of his other hand, the way he avoids looking at the shoe photo when it's placed in front of him. Is that fear? Disgust? Or simply the normal discomfort of being pulled into a nightmare you didn't make? They investigate his offered names, and in doing so they stumble into something that looks like it could be nothing and could be everything. Another contractor, younger, a temp worker with a shaky employment history, is connected to a van seen in the area. A third has a previous charge for theft. A fourth is known for sleeping in service tunnels during night shifts. The underworld of maintenance and subcontracting opens up like a trapdoor. Men who know the city's hidden doors, men who move in and out of spaces the public never sees, men who understand access as power. Leah's disappearance suddenly feels less like a freak event and more like something that could be engineered with terrible ease. Police request access logs for certain buildings. They compare key card swipes with estimated times. But access logs are incomplete. Some doors are old, mechanical, unlogged. Some entries are propped open with bricks. Some security systems are temporarily offline for upgrades. Temporary becomes eternal when you need evidence. Hannah receives a letter. It arrives in a plain envelope, no return address, nothing dramatic. Inside is a clipped newspaper headline about Leah's disappearance and a single line written in block capitals: "Stop looking." For a second she can't breathe. The words are so blunt they feel like a hand closing around her throat. She brings it to police. They dust it. They test it. No usable fingerprints. No DNA they can isolate with the methods available at the time. The paper smells faintly of cigarette smoke, but London is full of smoke. Still, the letter changes the temperature of the case. It isn't just absence now. It's interference. It's someone reaching back from the dark. Media turns feral. The letter leaks. Hannah never intended it to, but leaks aren't accidents, they're currency. The headline becomes, "Kidnapper Warns Family." Commentators speculate, armchair detectives build theories with loud confidence, and every theory is another weight on Hannah's chest. She stops going out. She stops answering calls from unknown numbers. Every ring is either hope or poison. Police increase pressure on Graham. They follow him, watch his routine, track his movements with quiet hunger. They sit outside his flat in a parked car at 2 a.m., staring at his darkened windows, listening to their own breathing. They search his storage unit and find industrial grease, the kind that could make that smear on Leah's shoe. But industrial grease is everywhere. They find duct tape, rope, a folding knife. All things that exist in hardware stores and kitchens across the city. Context is everything, and context in this case keeps slipping through fingers. Then a new witness appears, and the case jolts like a heart restarting. A homeless man who sleeps near Aldgate approaches a community officer, and says he saw something the night Leah disappeared. He says a woman was led, not dragged, led, by two men toward a service entrance near a building site. He remembers because she was missing a shoe. He remembers because she kept looking back over her shoulder as if hoping someone would notice. He says her mouth moved but no sound came out. The officer brings him in. Detectives interview him gently, then harder, then gently again, because trauma and addiction can twist memory, but also sharpen it. The man draws a rough sketch of the entrance. He points on a map. It's not Chancery Lane. It's closer to the edge of Whitechapel. Suddenly, that 3:42 a.m. phone ping stops being an isolated flicker and becomes a marker on a path. They rush to the location. It's a boarded-up doorway beside a construction site, half hidden behind plywood and faded warning signs. The kind of place you walk past without seeing. They force the boards, search inside, crawl through dust and old wiring. There are footprints, too old to use. There are cigarette butts, countless. There are drag marks in dried mud that could be from anything, a pallet, a cart, a body. In one corner, they find a strip of black leather, thin, torn, like the edge of a handbag strap. It goes into an evidence bag. Hope goes with it. The handbag strap fragment matches Leah's tote. The stitching pattern is similar. The leather type is consistent. Again, not proof. But another thread. Another reason the city suddenly feels like it has a secret map that only certain people can read. Detectives bring in search dogs. The dogs move with frantic purpose, noses low, tails stiff. They lead officers through the building site, past stacks of materials and locked containers, down into a concrete stairwell that drops into a service tunnel. The tunnel breathes damp air. Water drips. The hum of the city becomes a distant vibration. The dogs pull forward, then stall at a junction, circling, whining. Their handlers exchange looks. Scent is a language, and here it says, something passed through, but it passed through long ago, and the trail is dying. It's at that junction that one detective notices a smear on the wall, black and greasy, at shoulder height, as if someone brushed against it in a hurry. It looks like the same kind of lubricant found on Leah's shoe. Suddenly those two small stains, one on a heel, one on concrete, begin to speak to each other across the months. The detective runs a gloved finger near it, collects a sample, and feels a chill that has nothing to do with the tunnel's cold. The case is no longer just a missing woman. It is a corridor of shadows beneath London, a network of access and secrecy, a story that insists the city can hide a person the way a stagehand can pull a curtain. And above ground, life keeps moving, buses keep rolling, crowds keep flowing, while beneath, somewhere beyond that junction, the unanswered question continues to walk, one shoe missing, footsteps silent, waiting for someone to finally catch up. The tunnel junction feels like the inside of a throat, damp, narrow, swallowing sound, while above it London keeps laughing, shopping, rushing, pretending that a person can't just be taken by the city's machinery. The smear on the concrete wall dries into a dull black bruise under the beam of a torch, and the detective, Doyle, cheeks hollow from sleepless nights, stares at it as if it might turn into a fingerprint if he stares hard enough. He tastes metal in his mouth, the stale, bitter taste of too many coffees and too few answers, and he thinks about Leah's sister clutching that stop-looking letter like a live wire. He thinks about the shoe. One shoe. The simplest symbol of a struggle. A human being turned into a leftover. The lab's report arrives 2 days later like a half-open door. The lubricant on the shoe and the tunnel wall is consistent with a specific industrial grease used in elevator maintenance, thick, high viscosity, branded, the type applied to guide rails and pulley systems, the type you don't casually smear on your hands unless you work with moving steel. It's not unique, but it's uncommon enough to narrow the field. It points away from random street violence and toward someone who knows how buildings breathe. Someone who moves through London by its service arteries, not its sidewalks. So they pivot hard. They ask for elevator service rosters. They pull contractor lists. They call building managers, who never remember names until police show up. They dig into maintenance schedules like archaeologists digging bones. The pattern that emerges is ugly in its simplicity. The buildings around Chancery Lane, Fleet Street, and the Whitechapel Edge site, 3 separate locations in Leah's shrinking map, share a subcontractor. A small firm. 2 vans. A handful of workers. A man who signs off the inspections, Graham Lyle. That name lands on the table with a sound no one admits they hear. They already interviewed him, already searched his flat, already circled him in red ink. Now the case circles back like a predator returning to a wounded animal. And Doyle hates that feeling, not satisfaction, not triumph, just the sense that the truth is walking in loops while Leah's family ages in place. They bring Graham in again, but this time the interview room is colder. They place the new reports down like weights. They don't ask friendly questions. They ask the ones that cut. Why did your grease show up in a tunnel near Whitechapel? Why did your SIM number contact Leah at 6:02 p.m.? Why did you leave your work site early? Why did you say you'd never been in that alley? Graham sits back, jaw tight, the posture of a man who refuses to give them the pleasure of watching him squirm. He says the grease is common. He says his supplies could have been shared. He says the SIM was lost weeks ago. He says he left early because he had a dentist appointment. He says he lied about the alley because he didn't want to get dragged into your paranoia. Paranoia. He uses the word like an insult, but it lands like a confession of contempt. And contempt, Doyle knows, is often what predators feel for the world that thinks it's safe. They pressure him with details, but pressure without proof is just noise. Graham's solicitor slides in, calm, neat, expensive. The interview ends with nothing but Graham's steady eyes and the detective's frustration burning behind his teeth. As Graham walks out, Doyle watches his hands, clean, clipped nails, no grease under them, as if he's learned how to wash away any trace of his real life. Or as if he never did anything at all. Outside the station, the media are waiting again, cameras hungry, shouting Leah's name as if it's a spell that will force her out of hiding. Hannah sees the news clip later, and slams her laptop shut so hard her knuckles hurt. She's tired of her sister becoming content. She's tired of the story being told by people who don't feel the silence in the middle of a family dinner. She walks to Leah's flat with a key she can't bring herself to throw away, opens the door, and the air inside is stale, trapped, still. Leah's coat still hangs where she left it. Her toothbrush still leans in the cup. Her notebook lies on the table with a list half written, milk, stamps, call mum, and that half list is worse than any crime scene photo, because it proves how normal Leah believed the next day would be. Hannah sits on the sofa and listens. No footsteps above. No voices outside. Only the hum of the fridge and the city beyond the window. She takes out her phone and scrolls Leah's last texts again, the way people touch bruises just to confirm they are real. And that's when she notices something she missed 100 times before, not in Leah's message, but in the timestamp. Leah's text, "See you at 8x, was sent at 10:07 a.m. But at 10:11 a.m., Leah received a call from a private number. Not the 13-second pay-as-you-go call at 6:02 p.m. A private number in the morning. And the call lasted nearly 2 minutes. Hannah's breath catches. She calls Doyle directly. Her voice shakes as she explains, as if she's afraid the detail will dissolve if she says it out loud. Doyle checks the log. The private number call is there. It wasn't highlighted because private numbers are everywhere, spam, marketing, wrong numbers, but in the context of the day Leah vanished, it becomes a nail in the floorboard. 2 suspicious calls in one day. 2 different sources. One hidden by privacy. One hidden by anonymity. Leah didn't just vanish, she was contacted. Twice. They dig into her work phone next. And inside the company system, inside the dull, ordered world of corporate logs, they find something that chills the room. Leah's desk phone received a call at 5:49 p.m., 15 minutes before the CCTV sighting, from an internal extension that doesn't exist on the current roster. A phantom extension. A line that used to belong to a storage room phone before the office moved floors. A line that should have been disconnected. Yet it called her. Doyle feels the case transform in his hands. This isn't a random predator grabbing a woman on the street. This is someone reaching into her day, pinging her from inside her own routines, nudging her toward a point on the map. The hairs on the back of his neck rise, not from fear, but from the awful recognition of planning. They pull the office's CCTV. The company's cameras are better than the streets, cleaner image, closer angles. They watch Leah leaving her desk. At 5:52 p.m., she stands, tucks hair behind her ear, frowns at something on her computer screen. At 5:54 p.m., she picks up her tote, checks her phone, and walks out, not with the relaxed relief of a person heading home, but with an edge of purpose, as if she's late to something she didn't schedule. In the lobby, she pauses near the reception desk and speaks briefly to someone off camera. The receptionist later can't remember who. The receptionist remembers nothing because her day is a river of faces. But the camera catches Leah's body language. Shoulders slightly tense, chin angled up, as if responding to a request she doesn't like, but feels obligated to fulfill. They widen the frame, enhance the footage, squint at the edge of the image. A figure enters briefly, half blocked by a pillar. Male, maybe. Dark coat. The camera catches only a sliver, an arm gesture, a tilt of head. It's enough to feel like a person, not enough to identify. A ghost in suit fabric. And the worst part is that the office, the place that should be safest, is now a hunting ground. The police start interviewing Leah's co-workers again, and now the questions are sharper, more accusatory. Who had access to the office after hours? Who knew Leah's routine? Who could have used that dead extension line? IT staff shrug and say the old extension shouldn't work. Facilities manager says the old phone might still be plugged in somewhere. Someone suggests a prank. Doyle's eyes flick to the shoe bag on his desk and he thinks, no, nobody loses a shoe in a prank. A junior accountant named Priya mentions something that shifts the air. She says Leah had been unsettled for weeks. Not panicked, but distracted. Leah had asked, casually, if the office phones logged internal calls. Leah had asked if the building's service stairwell was monitored by CCTV. Leah had asked if anyone had noticed a man waiting near the side entrance in the mornings. Priya didn't think anything of it at the time. Leah didn't want to be dramatic. Leah didn't want to be that girl who thinks she's being watched. So she wrapped fear in jokes and let it sit in her mouth like something bitter. Now that fear has a shape. They ask Priya to describe the man. Priya says mid-40s, maybe. Broad shoulders. Wore a navy cap sometimes. Smelled like engine oil. Said morning once and kept walking. She thought he was maintenance. Maintenance. The word keeps echoing. They return to Graham's firm. They ask for payroll records. They ask for employee IDs, uniforms, vehicle logs. The owner, a nervous man with red-rimmed eyes, complains about harassment, about being dragged into a media circus, about how he's just trying to keep his business afloat. Doyle doesn't care. Doyle wants names. He wants faces. He wants the person behind that phantom extension call. And the firm gives him a roster that includes a name he hasn't heard yet, Martin Keene. Senior technician. Worked nights. Known for fixing things quietly. Was on call during the week Leah vanished. Took sick leave the day after. They run Martin Keene. He has a record, minor, old, altercation outside a pub, charges dropped. Nothing that screams abductor. But the record is less interesting than the pattern of his life. Frequent address changes, no steady relationships. A habit of disappearing from jobs and reappearing elsewhere. A man who knows how to slip through systems. They go to his last known address in Barking. The flat is empty. The landlord says Martin left weeks ago. No forwarding address. No goodbye. Just keys dropped through the letterbox. Doyle looks out at the grey estate courtyard and feels his patience snap. If Martin Keene is involved, he's already moving. And if he's moving, Leah is either moving too, or she's already become something he doesn't need to move. Then, on a Thursday afternoon, a new piece of the city speaks. A woman walking her dog along the Regent's Canal near Limehouse notices something in the reeds, fabric caught and fluttering like a trapped bird. The dog pulls, snarls. The woman thinks it's litter until she sees the color, a muted red that doesn't belong to crisp packets and beer cans. She calls it in. Officers arrive, pull on gloves, wade into mud. They retrieve a scarf. A thin wool scarf, damp, tangled with river weeds, smelling of brackish water and diesel. Hannah identifies it without hesitation. Leah wore it all winter. It was a gift from their mother. Hannah's hands shake so violently she can barely sign the statement. The scarf becomes proof that Leah was near water. Or that someone wanted it to look that way. Either way, it's the first item recovered that feels undeniably hers in a way the shoe could almost, terrifyingly, be dismissed as coincidence. Forensic tests pull a faint mixture of traces from the scarf, canal water, algae, and something else, a smear of the same industrial grease along one edge, as if a gloved hand handled it. Doyle sits back in his chair as the report lands. The room feels smaller. The city feels meaner. Because now the case has a route, Chancery Lane, to Whitechapel, to Limehouse. A line drawn through service corridors and hidden doors and water edges. They search the canal banks, combing through weeds, dragging for anything that might snag. They find nothing else. But the search brings out more witnesses, people who suddenly remember things now that the news tells them their memories matter. A cyclist recalls swerving around a van parked near Limehouse late at night, hazard lights off. A barge worker remembers hearing a woman cry out, once, then silence. He thought it was a fox. Everyone in London blames the night noises on foxes, until a human screams becomes a headline. They trace van sightings, cross-reference license plate fragments, traffic cameras, toll points. One plate comes up again and again, but always half obscured, always one digit uncertain. They isolate 3 possible matches. One is registered to Graham's firm. Another to a rental company. The third to a private owner in Essex. Doyle feels the case tightening again, like fingers around a throat. And then, just as the team begins to believe they're closing in, the case does what it always does, it slips. The rental van was returned cleaned. The Essex plate leads to an elderly man, who never left his village that week. Graham's firm van was logged as off-road for repairs, on the night of the Limehouse sighting, but the repair log is handwritten, dated after the fact. Handwritten logs are where lies go to rest. Doyle goes home one night and stands in his kitchen staring at the kettle, unable to remember why he came in there. He imagines Leah in a service tunnel, cold concrete under her hands, grease on her scarf, one foot bare, trying to breathe quietly so no one hears. He imagines her voice cut off mid-shout in an alley. He imagines her eyes scanning a crowd for help that never arrives. He hates himself for imagining it, because imagination can become entertainment if you're not careful, and Leah is not entertainment. Leah is a person who wrote milk, stamps, call mum, and believed in tomorrow. The next morning, a second letter arrives. This one doesn't go to Hannah. It goes to the police station, addressed simply, for the Lt.Joe won't let Joe. Inside is a single printed photograph, grainy, taken at night. It shows a woman's hand, pale, trembling, pressed against a dirty window. No face. No location. But on the wrist is a bracelet Hannah recognizes instantly, a thin silver chain with a small star charm. Leah's bracelet. The photo is accompanied by one line, again in block capitals, "SHE doesn't want to come back." The room goes silent when Doyle reads it. Not because they believe it. Because they feel what it is meant to do. It's not information. It's a weapon. It's meant to fracture hope, to turn family against police, to make the public shrug and say, maybe she left. Maybe she chose this. The cruelty is surgical. Doyle looks at the photo under a magnifier. Behind the hand, in the dirty glass reflection, is a smear of black, industrial grease. And in the corner of the frame, barely visible, is a strip of yellow warning tape, the kind used on construction sites and service entrances. The city's underbelly again. The message is clear: you are chasing me through my own territory. He pins the photo beside Leah's CCTV still, and the shoe evidence label, and the map line from Chancery Lane to Limehouse. The board starts to look less like an investigation, and more like a shrine to absence. Doyle hears Hannah's voice in his head, sharp with grief and rage. She wouldn't do this to me. And he knows the case has crossed the point where it's just about finding Leah. It's about whether London will admit what it can hide, whether the city's hidden doors can be forced open, whether a person who knows the service tunnels better than the streets can keep a human being unseen forever, while above ground, the world continues to move, smiling, stepping carefully around a single black shoe that refuses to stop asking the question. The photograph sits on Doyle's desk like a parasite, grainy, cruel, confident, feeding on every doubt the investigation has tried to starve. A pale hand against dirty glass. A star charm bracelet catching the flash in a sharp, metallic wink. And that single line in block capitals, cold as a drainpipe, "SHE doesn't want to come back." It's not a statement, it's a chokehold. It's designed to do one thing: make the world think Leah walked away by choice, and make Hannah feel guilty for refusing to believe it. London loves a story where the missing are responsible for their own disappearance. It's tidy. It lets strangers sleep. Doyle doesn't sleep. He stares at the photo until his eyes burn, then he stares harder, because sometimes the truth hides in the corner you're too tired to look at. He drags the image into the lab scanner, blows it up until the pixels become squares, and suddenly the smear behind the glass isn't just a smear. It's a pattern. A thick arc, greasy, like a glove swiped to frame. The yellow strip in the corner, the warning tape, has a faint printed code on it, half obscured by blur. Not readable. Not yet. But the kind of tape used in exactly 3 major suppliers across the city. That's something. Not justice. Not certainty. But something with edges. He takes the photo to Hannah himself. Not because protocol demands it, but because the worst thing you can do to a family is let them hear the cruelty from a reporter first. Hannah's flat smells like cold tea and unwashed laundry, the smell of a life paused mid-breath. She opens the door with a chain still on, eyes sharp, suspicious, exhausted. When she sees the photo in Doyle's hand, her face collapses in a way that makes him feel like a thief. He doesn't speak softly. Softness can feel like pity. He speaks steadily, like a man handing over a weapon he didn't ask to hold. Hannah takes it with both hands as if it might bite. Her fingers trace the bracelet in the image. "That's hers," she says, voice hollow. The word hers lands heavy. Not Leah's, as if saying Leah's name might crack her open. Doyle watches her swallow, sees the moment her mind tries to bargain with reality. If Leah is behind glass, she's alive. If she's alive, then the story can still have an ending that isn't a grave. Hannah lifts her eyes and they burn with rage. "They want me to stop," she says. "They want me to shut up and wait for her to be forgotten." Doyle nods because that's exactly what it is. The photo isn't proof, it's intimidation. An intimidation means there's a person on the other side who is paying attention, who is following the investigation like a spectator at a boxing match, enjoying the way every punch misses. Back at the station, the team moves like a kicked hive. They run the photo's paper stock, the printer dots, the ink distribution, anything that might lead to a source. The lab can't give them miracles. It can suggest the photo was printed on a common home printer. It can suggest the paper was purchased in a pack available in every office supply store from Camden to Croydon. It can't tell them whose hands fed the sheet through the tray. 2007 is not the age of perfect digital trails. It's the age of gaps. So Doyle goes old school. He wants the suppliers of that yellow tape. He wants every building site that bought it within a 3-mile radius of Whitechapel and Limehouse. He wants the sites that used it on access doors, on temporary barriers, on the kinds of entrances the public never looks at twice. He gets a list. It's long. London is always under construction. London rebuilds itself like a restless animal shedding skin. They pick the sites that match the geography, the line drawn from Leah's last camera to the canal's reeds. They visit them one by one, boots crunching gravel, hard hats on, eyes scanning every boarded doorway and temporary staircase. Construction workers watch the police with resentment and fear, because police attention means delays, and delays mean money, and money is what people care about when they've convinced themselves they aren't part of anyone's tragedy. At the third site, a foreman mentions something that cuts through the noise. He says a subcontractor team used the service corridor under the site to store equipment, kept it locked, didn't like anyone going in. He says one of the men was strict about it, short-tempered, always wearing gloves even in warm weather. He doesn't remember the name. But he remembers the van. White, no markings, side panel dented near the back wheel. He remembers because he scraped his knuckles on that dent once. Doyle's pen pauses. A dent is more than a description. A dent is a fingerprint a vehicle carries around in public. They ask for the site's delivery logs, vehicle access forms, anything with plates. The foreman laughs, bitter. Half the lads don't sign in, he says. They come and go like rats. But he hands over what he has. It's enough to create a list of 10 plates that entered after hours during the week Leah vanished. 10 possible teeth in the dark. They run them. 9 go nowhere. The 10th is a private plate registered to a man named Martin Keane. The name hits like a punch. The technician. The night worker. The one who took sick leave the day after. The one who vanished from his barking flat like smoke. Suddenly Martin Keane is no longer a shadow on a roster, he's a moving shape on a map. Doyle feels it, the hunt tightening, the story finally beginning to show its bones. They put his photo out internally. They circulate it through transport police, through local officers, through border points. They check hospitals. They check shelters. They check every place a man might hide, when he knows his name is being spoken in briefings. They find nothing. It's like London is helping him disappear, like the city's sheer volume is protecting him the way crowds protect pickpockets. Then, 2 nights later, an officer on patrol in Stepney is called to a minor disturbance, an argument outside a late-night off-license, the kind of petty chaos that never makes news. A man is shouting, drunk, wild-eyed, accusing another of stealing my work. The officer separates them, takes details. And when the shouting man spits out the name of the one he's angry at, the officer's stomach tightens, because he recognizes it from the briefing photo pinned beside the kettle back at the station. Martin, the drunk man says. Martin Keane. That bastard. The officer plays it cool, because panic can make suspects vanish. He asks casually, like he doesn't care, where's Martin now? The drunk man laughs. Gone, he says. Always gone. Comes round when he needs something, then disappears. The officer takes the man in for a statement. By dawn, Doyle is in the room, leaning forward, voice low, eyes locked. The drunk man sobers under the weight of attention. His name is Darren Holt. He worked odd jobs, delivery, site cleaning, whatever paid. He says he knew Martin through the contractor circuit. He says Martin talked big about knowing the city under the city. He says Martin had access, keys, codes, passes, ways to get into places that weren't meant to be entered. He says Martin once showed him a service door behind a building and said, smiling, you could take someone through here and no one would ever see. Doyle's face stays still, but inside him something hardens. A detective hears a line like that and feels the room tilt. Darren shrugs like it's just talk. Men say stupid things. Men exaggerate. But talk is how predators test the world, how they see what disgusts people and what fascinates them. Doyle asks about Leah. Darren frowns. Says he never heard her name. Then he pauses, scratching his jaw, eyes narrowing like he's digging through fog. He says Martin mentioned a woman from the office once, said she was stuck up, said she looked right through you like you weren't there. Said she needed to learn something. Darren laughs awkwardly as he repeats it, like he wants to pretend it's just crude male resentment. Doyle doesn't laugh. Doyle writes every word down as if it's blood. Darren says he last saw Martin the weekend after Leah vanished. Martin showed up at Darren's flat late, sweating, jittery, asking to borrow a phone. He wouldn't use his own. He used the phone, spoke in a whisper, then wiped it down with his sleeve before handing it back. Darren thought it was drugs. Now he thinks it was fear. Martin asked if Darren knew anyone who could store equipment somewhere quiet. Darren refused. Martin left. That's the last time Darren saw him. Doyle asks about vehicles. Darren says Martin sometimes drove a white van, unmarked, dented on the side. Doyle feels his pulse kick. The dent. The foreman's detail. The little bruise on metal that connects a construction site to a missing woman. They search for the van. They hit DVLA records. They cross-check private registrations, rental fleets, insurance policies. A van can be sold, scrapped, repainted. A dent can be fixed. But the city has cameras, and cameras remember more than people do when you ask the right question. They run the plate from the delivery log through traffic camera hits around the dates. The system gives them scattered sightings, brief, indifferent images of a vehicle moving like any other. But the route is telling. The van appears near Holborn the afternoon Leah vanished. It appears later near Aldgate, then near Limehouse after midnight. A line, again. A trail made of timestamps. They try to pin Martin to it. They can't. The vehicle is registered to a woman in Dagenham, an aunt. She claims she lent it to him. Says he was family, quiet, reliable, always fixed things around the house. She seems genuinely baffled that police are at her door. Doyle watches her hands tremble as she pours tea. He sees the horror blooming behind her eyes, as she realizes reliability can be a mask. They get a warrant for her garage. The van is there, paint slightly fresher than old photos show, as if someone tried to make it look new. But the dent is still visible under the new coat, softened but not erased. It's like guilt trying to hide under makeup. Forensics go over it inch by inch. They find dust. They find old fast food wrappers. They find a smear of black grease in the rear latch mechanism. They find fibers in the cargo area, dark wool, consistent with a scarf like Leah's. They find a tiny fleck of glittery silver plastic stuck under the rubber floor mat. It's nothing, until Hannah later looks at it and whispers, "That's from her notebook cover." She had a cheap silver cover, it shed bits everywhere. The room goes quiet. Not triumph. Not relief. A new kind of dread. Because evidence is one thing. A missing person is another. Proof can pile up like bricks, and still not build a doorway back to Leah. They arrest Martin Keene on suspicion. Except they can't. Because by the time they have enough for a warrant, he's gone. Not missing. Not unfound. Gone in the way a man disappears when he knows the city's exits. A border check shows nothing. No passport scan. No flight booking. No ferry ticket. And that absence is its own kind of confirmation. Innocent men don't usually vanish when the net tightens. But guilty men can. So they hunt him like a rumor. They chase reports of a man matching his description in hostels, on building sites, in pubs where the lighting is low and names don't matter. They find men who look like him, who move like him, who swear they've never heard the name. London is full of men with broad shoulders and quiet eyes. London is a factory that produces anonymity. Meanwhile, Hannah is devouring herself from the inside. She keeps the photo in a drawer, but she checks it like a wound. She wakes at night hearing imagined knocks. She dreams of service tunnels and wakes tasting damp concrete. Every day she faces a cruel choice, to hope, which hurts, or to stop hoping, which feels like killing her sister with her own hands. Then, in late autumn, a storm hits London hard, wind clawing at scaffolds, rain slamming windows, the city's lights shimmering in puddles like broken mirrors. In the chaos, a maintenance worker, at a disused building near Wapping calls in something strange. He says the basement door, sealed for years, was forced open. Inside, he found a small room that smelled of mildew and oil, and on the floor was a silver star charm, snapped clean from a chain. Doyle arrives while rain hammers his coat. He descends into the basement with a torch cutting through stale air. The room is bare except for old paint cans and a stained mattress shoved against a wall. The star charm sits in an evidence bag, tiny, innocent-looking, the kind of thing you'd never notice if it wasn't soaked in meaning. The chain is not there. The bracelet is not there. Just the star, broken away, as if someone tore it off in anger or panic. Forensics photograph everything. They dust. They swab. They find partial prints smudged into grime, nothing clean enough to match. They find grease on the door hinge. They find a faint scent of bleach, as if someone tried to scrub the air itself. In one corner, there's a scratch mark on the concrete, 3 short lines, then a longer one. Doyle stares at it too long, then looks away, because his mind is doing what minds do when they are desperate, turning every mark into a message. Above ground, the storm passes and the city returns to normal. Below, the basement stays cold and silent, a pocket of the underworld where something may have happened that no camera ever saw. Doyle stands at the doorway, rainwater dripping off his sleeve, and he feels the case pressing on him like the weight of the city itself. A missing woman, a vanished suspect, a trail of grease and warning tape and broken charms, and the same question still beating like a drum in his skull. How can a person be taken through the seams of a modern city and leave behind only objects, only echoes, only a story that refuses to end? The little silver star sits in a sealed bag on Doyle's desk, and it feels heavier than it should, as if metal can store fear the way cloth stores smell, as if a charm can carry the weight of a person who might have clawed it loose in the dark. The storm that revealed it is already a memory on the news, flooded tube lines, fallen branches, dramatic photos of umbrellas snapped inside out. But down in that basement near Wapping the air still tastes like bleach and damp concrete. And Doyle can't shake the thought that someone went to the trouble of cleaning a room that wasn't meant to be found, which means it mattered to them, which means Leah mattered to them in the worst possible way. He moves the evidence bag aside and stares at the wall map. Chancery Lane to Whitechapel to Limehouse to Wapping, thin red thread pinned like veins across London's face, a brutal reminder that the city doesn't just have streets, it has seams, and something slipped through them. The lab report arrives in pieces, never as one clean revelation, always as a drip feed designed to keep you hungry. The star charm has microscopic scratches consistent with being snapped off under sudden force, not worn loose by time. The mattress fibers show traces of industrial grease embedded deep, as if it was dragged across something lubricated. There's a faint biological trace on the charm, skin cells, degraded, not enough to build a full profile with the tech they have in 2007. It's always almost. Always close enough to hurt. Doyle meets Hannah again, because he has to. It's become ritual now. Deliver bad news with just enough careful phrasing to keep a person from collapsing in public. Hannah sits with her hands wrapped around a mug she hasn't drunk from, knuckles white, eyes fixed on the bagged charm like it might start speaking. That's hers, she says, and it's not relief, it's rage. That's proof. Doyle doesn't correct her. Proof of presence is not proof of life. Proof is a word that sounds like comfort, until you realize it can also be a coffin lid. Outside, the media turns the charm into a new frenzy. Breakthrough in Leah Marston mystery. Star charm found in secret basement. Pundits argue over whether it means she's alive, whether it means she's dead, whether she ran away, whether she was sold, whether she's being held by some faceless network that makes London feel like a hunting ground. The more they talk, the less human she becomes. Leah turns into a plot. Hannah turns into a talking head. And someone, somewhere, watches the coverage and learns how powerful a rumor can be. Doyle knows they are being watched. He knows because the case keeps getting nudged, not solved, not answered, nudged, like a hand tapping the glass to prove the fish are paying attention. 2 days after the charm discovery, a call comes into the station's main line. No voice. Just breathing. Slow, deliberate. Then the line clicks dead. The operator looks up, pale. Doyle takes the phone, listens to the dial tone like it's a pulse. He checks the caller ID, withheld. Of course it is. Nothing in this case ever hands itself over clean. They return to the basement with a full team. They rip it apart the way you rip apart a lie, not gently, not politely. They check for hidden compartments, false walls, crawl spaces. They measure the room's dimensions against the building's floor plan, and find an inconsistency, an extra sliver of space behind a storage wall that shouldn't exist. They knock. Hollow. They pry. The panel gives with a scream of nails. Behind it, a narrow service cavity, damp and cramped, leading to a metal door with a faded stencil, access, authorized personnel only. Doyle's skin prickles. He pushes it open and feels cold air rise like a breath from below. It's a service tunnel. Not part of the public map. Not part of any guided tour. A corridor of brick and pipework, low ceiling, puddles reflecting their torch beams like black mirrors. Graffiti on the walls, tags, crude jokes, a few sharp symbols that mean nothing to the untrained eye. The tunnel branches left and right, and the city above becomes a dull vibration, as if they've stepped into the inside of London's skull. They follow it. They mark their route. They feel their way past pipes slick with condensation. Every step echoes. Every echo feels like a warning. The tunnel leads to a grated ladder that climbs toward a street-level utility hatch. Doyle looks up through the grate and sees the underside of London's skin, the metal ribs that hold the city together. He thinks about Darren Holt's statement, "You could take someone through here and no one would ever see," and he feels a cold, intimate disgust, because the man wasn't bragging. He was reciting a fact. They surface near Shadwell, less than a mile from the canal where the scarf was found. The line on the map tightens. The underworld connects the points the surface world couldn't explain. It's not magic. It's infrastructure. And infrastructure is easier to exploit than people want to admit. Transport officials arrive angry and defensive, insisting the tunnels are sealed, insisting access is controlled, insisting no one could be using them without authorization. Doyle nods while his eyes stay cold. He's been in enough basements and back corridors to know what controlled means in a city this old. It means controlled until someone wants in badly enough. A key can be copied. A lock can be picked. A door can be left ajar by accident, or by bribery, or by fatigue. London runs on human error, and predators feast on error. They start auditing access keys. They pull records for every authorized badge tied to those service points. They cross-check with contractor rosters. Martin Keen's name appears again, like a stain that won't wash. He was issued a temporary access badge for work near Aldgate. The badge was reported lost a month before Leah vanished. Lost. Another convenient word. Another doorway left open. Then the dead office extension call resurfaces in their minds like a bad smell. The phantom line that called Leah at 5:49 p.m. The call no one can explain. Doyle goes to the IT manager at Leah's company and refuses to leave until he gets something more than shrugs. They trace the old extension to a switchboard port still physically active in a storage room, a port that shouldn't have been live, but was forgotten in a tangle of outdated wiring. The call didn't come from inside the office at all. It came from outside, routed through the building's internal system using a security override code meant for after-hours maintenance. Maintenance. Again. The code is supposed to be known only to facilities staff and contracted engineers. Doyle asks for the code access list. The facilities manager goes pale. There are too many names. Too many contractors. Too many temporary workers who passed through and were never properly logged. Doyle stares at the list and feels the case's shape changing again. This wasn't only about a man in a van. This was about access. About a system that allowed the wrong person to sound like the right person inside Leah's life, to summon her without leaving a normal phone trace, to make her step into a blind spot, because she thought it was work, because she thought it was routine, because she trusted the voice of the building. Hannah hears this and almost laughs, but it comes out broken. So she didn't even know she was walking into it, she says. Doyle doesn't answer, because there's nothing to soften that. Leah may have left her desk thinking she was fixing a problem, meeting someone for a document, dealing with a mundane request, the way responsible people do, and that responsibility may have been the hook. The pressure on Graham Lyle's firm spikes. Police return with warrants that feel like thunder. They seize computers. They seize key logs. They seize call-out records. The owner cries, swears he's innocent, swears he had no idea. Workers mutter and avoid eye contact. And in the middle of it all is a single missing technician, a vanished suspect, whose absence is starting to look like guilt carved into air. Doyle finds a drawer of old access codes in a forgotten filing cabinet, scribbled on paper, casually stored like they mean nothing. A system built on laziness. A system that can be weaponized. They pull Martin Keen's phone history from the days before he disappeared, trying again and again to find a trail that isn't smoke. They get tower hits, fragmented, and one hit stands out, near the Warping building, 2 nights after Leah vanished. Another hit, near a cash point in Bethnal Green. They request CCTV from the bank. The footage is grainy but usable. A man in a cap withdraws cash at 2:18 a.m., head down, shoulders hunched, moving like someone who expects a hand on his collar any second. He glances up once, and the camera catches enough of his face for Doyle's stomach to tighten. Martin. Or a man built like him. Either way, the city is giving them a sliver. They distribute the still image quietly to officers and transport staff, not to the public. The public tips are a wildfire, they need a scalpel. 2 days later, a transport inspector calls in a report from a maintenance depot near Stratford. A man matching the image tried to enter the yard early morning, claiming he was there for a job. He didn't have proper ID. When challenged, he turned and walked away fast. The inspector remembers his hands, gloved, despite the mild weather. Always gloves. The detail feels like a signature. Doyle's team moves before the scent fades. They canvass the depot's perimeter, check adjacent streets, talk to night shift workers, check nearby CCTV. A camera on a warehouse catches the man again at 4:07 a.m., slipping behind a row of parked lorries, then disappearing into a gap between buildings that leads to, of course, a service access corridor. The city seems again. The underworld again. They coordinate with units along likely tunnel exits. They place plainclothes officers near utility hatches, behind unmarked vans, in doorway shadows. It's tense, silent work, the kind where your body feels like a tightened wire. Doyle stands with his collar up against the cold, watching a rust-stained hatch cover in a back alley, waiting for it to move. He imagines Martin's hands under there, twisting a key, lifting metal, emerging like a rat from a drain. He imagines the moment they finally get him, the moment the story stops being about absence and becomes about answers. At 5:19 a.m., the hatch shifts. Just a fraction at first, like someone testing the weight. Then it lifts, slow, careful. A gloved hand appears, fingers tense. The cover tilts. The alley holds its breath. And then a head rises, cap brim, shadowed face, eyes scanning. It is Martin Keene. Close enough now that Doyle can see the angle of his nose, the stubble on his jaw, the way his gaze flicks like a man checking for traps. He starts to climb out. Armed police. Someone shouts, and the alley explodes into motion. Boots pound. Radios crackle. A torch beam slams into Martin's face, bleaching it white for a split second. And in that split second, Doyle sees something in his expression that isn't shock. It's calculation. Martin drops backward into the hole like a stone. The hatch cover crashes down. Metal clangs. Someone lunges to pry it up, but it's already locked from below, a mechanism designed for exactly this. Keep people out, keep people from following. Doyle feels pure fury rise like bile. He slams his fist against the cover, feels the sting in his knuckles, doesn't care. They cut at the lock. They crowbar. They wrench. Finally the cover gives, and cold air breathes up again. Officers descend. Torches slice through darkness. They run through the tunnel, footsteps splashing, echoes multiplying. They reach a junction and stop. 2 paths. Left and right. Water dripping. Silence. No sight of him. Dogs are brought. The dogs pull right, then hesitate, then pull left, then whine, confused, scent scattered like dust. Someone has used bleach down here recently. Someone has tried to erase their own trail. Doyle's chest tightens. Martin didn't just escape, he prepared to escape. He knew these tunnels the way a sailor knows currents. He knew that 1 second of hesitation is all you need to become invisible again. They search for hours. They find nothing but damp brick and old graffiti, and the awful realization that London's hidden corridors are bigger than their manpower. When they finally climb back into daylight, the sun is up, pale and indifferent, and commuters are already moving, stepping past the alley without looking in, oblivious to how close they came to a capture, oblivious to how a man might have just slipped beneath their feet like a shadow. Hannah hears about the near capture, and her face does something Doyle hates seeing. It brightens with hope, and then darkens with rage, when the hope realizes it has been cheated again. "You had him," she says, voice sharp. "You were right there." Doyle's jaw tightens. He wants to say the truth. We can't chase a man through a city that was built to hide its own wiring, not when he knows every access point and we're always arriving after he's moved. But he doesn't say that. He says, "We're closing in." Because that is what you say to keep someone from falling into the kind of despair that makes them stop answering the phone. The next week, there are no letters. No calls. No taunts. The silence is worse than the threats because silence can mean two things. The predator is satisfied, or the predator is afraid. Doyle doesn't know which is more dangerous. He sits alone late one night, the station nearly empty, the charm bag on his desk catching the light, and he realizes something that makes his stomach sink: the photo, the letter, the breathing call, the bleach in the tunnel, the lock from below, the planning. This isn't just someone running. This is someone controlling the pace, choosing when to show himself, choosing when to vanish, choosing when to let the investigation think it's close. And somewhere in that control, Leah's existence has become a tool, a lever, a reason to keep the story alive without ever letting it end. Outside, winter sharpens. The city's air grows colder, harsher. Nights come earlier, shadows lengthen, and London becomes a place of dark corners and hurried footsteps. Posters with Leah's face peel further, edges curled like dried leaves. Her name fades from the front pages, replaced by fresher horrors, but Doyle feels the case pressing harder, not softer, because the longer Martin stays unseen, the more the city belongs to him. And beneath the streets, in the service tunnels where pipes hum and water drips and bleach stings the nose, there is still space for a person to be kept, still space for a secret to breathe, and Doyle can't stop picturing that pale hand against glass, bracelet catching the flash, and the possibility that somewhere, behind some other dirty window, Leah is still there, listening to the city above, waiting for a moment that never comes, while the man who knows the seams keeps moving through London. Like he was built into it. The silence after the failed tunnel grab is not peaceful, it's predatory, the kind of quiet that makes every phone ring sound like a trap, and every creak in a stairwell feel like footsteps coming for you. And in the station Doyle watches the caseboard like it might change on its own, pins and photographs, and red thread hanging there as if London itself has been dissected and still refuses to reveal what it swallowed. No new letters arrive. No more breathing on the line. No fresh taunts printed in block capitals. For a week the city gives them nothing but weather, grey skies, biting wind, and routine crimes that don't care about Leah Marston, and that absence of interference feels wrong, because predators don't stop performing unless they are finished or frightened, and Doyle can't decide which one should make him sicker. He tightens the net anyway, not with hope, but with discipline, because when a man like Martin Keane slips back underground you don't chase him with emotion, you chase him with math. They bring in specialists, transport security, utility engineers, men who speak in diagrams and access points and pressure differentials. They lay maps across tables, not tourist maps, not street maps, but infrastructure maps, the anatomy of London, service tunnels, cable routes, drainage lines, basement connections between buildings built a century apart and stitched together by convenience. It's a different city down there, a city with no sunlight and no witnesses, and the more they learn about it the more the surface world feels like a stage set built on top of a labyrinth. They identify likely exit hatches within a radius and stake them out in rotating shifts. Plainclothes officers sit in parked vans with thermoses and aching backs, staring at unremarkable metal covers, listening for the faint scrape that could mean a gloved hand testing the edge. Dogs are brought in again, but bleach keeps poisoning the scent trails. Every time the dogs hesitate, every time they whine, Doyle imagines Martin smiling in the dark, wiping walls with chemicals like a man polishing his own invisibility. A breakthrough comes from a place that shouldn't matter, a hardware store receipt. One of the forensics techs, combing through seized paperwork from Graham Lyle's firm, finds a torn slip stuck behind a filing cabinet, barely legible. It lists industrial bleach concentrate, latex gloves, heavy-duty plastic sheeting, and a padlock model used for utility access covers. The receipt date is 2 days after Leah vanished. The payment method is cash. The store location is near Stratford, the same area where the transport depot sighting happened. The items on the receipt aren't illegal. They are normal. But normal items in the wrong order become a sentence. They go to the store and pull CCTV. The footage shows a man at the counter, cap low, face half hidden by the angle, but his posture is distinctive, shoulders slightly hunched, hands kept close, the instinctive guardedness of someone who expects trouble. He pays, takes the bag, leaves without looking back. The cashier doesn't remember him. Cash customers blur together. But the camera catches a detail, a star-shaped scratch on the back of his glove, like he snagged it on something sharp. Doyle's mind flashes to the snapped star charm in the evidence bag, and he has to breathe through his nose to keep his thoughts from running ahead of proof. They trace the route from the hardware store to the nearest service access points. There are 3. They cover all 3. Nothing happens. Hours go by, then days. London keeps moving, indifferent, and the case starts to feel like a war of endurance. Can the police stay hungry longer than the predator can stay hidden? Then, just before dawn on a Friday, a call comes into emergency services. Not from Hannah. Not from a journalist. From a man delivering bread to a cafe in Spitalfields. His voice is high with panic. He says he heard something in the alley behind the building, thumping, like someone hitting a metal door from inside. He says he heard a muffled cry. He says it sounded like a woman. Units respond fast, too fast for the city to hide the urgency. Blue lights smear across wet streets. Officers pour into the alley and the place smells of bins and stale beer and cold brick. The delivery man stands shaking, pointing at a steel service door embedded in the wall, the kind of door you never notice, because your eyes slide past it like it isn't there. Doyle arrives and his heart is beating harder than he wants to admit, because the mind does something cruel. It whispers this is it. It offers a picture of Leah alive behind a door, and even a hardened detective can't stop that picture from forming. They bang on the door. Police? No answer. Then, faint, unmistakable, a thud from the other side. It's not a pipe settling. Not wind. A human impact. The alley holds its breath. They cut the padlock. Sparks spit. Metal groans. The lock drops. The door opens and a cold, stale rush of air spills out, smelling of damp plaster and something sharp, chemical, clean, like bleach. They step inside with torches up. It's a narrow service corridor leading down to a basement stairwell. The walls are raw brick, scratched in places, and at the bottom of the stairs is a small room with a mattress, plastic sheeting, and a bucket. No one is there. But the room is wrong in a way that makes the skin crawl. The plastic is fresh. The bucket contains diluted bleach. The mattress has an impression like someone was lying there recently, heat still trapped in the fabric. There are shallow gouges on the inside of the door frame, as if someone has clawed at it, fingernails scraping metal. A set of zip ties lies on the floor like dropped worms. And on the wall, in charcoal or soot, someone has written a single word in shaky letters, please. Doyle stares at it and feels a flash of rage, so sharp it nearly blinds him. Because whoever left this room left it recently. Whoever used it knew exactly how close the police were. And that word, please, could be a message from Leah, or it could be a staged detail meant to gut them. The cruelty in that possibility is suffocating. Forensics swarm the scene. Swabs. Photos. Measurements. They dust for prints. They pull fibers from the mattress. They collect the charcoal residue from the wall. They find a partial footprint in damp concrete near the stairwell, barefoot, small, the toes pressing hard as if the person was carried and then set down. The footprint is smudged, incomplete, but it's there, a fragile signature. A barefoot footprint in a basement in Spitalfields. The city above, unaware, stepping over the bones of a secret. They rush to compare it with Leah's records, shoe size, foot width, the slight hallux angle from her medical notes, when she had a minor injury years ago. The techs work with calipers and photographs and cautious language, but Doyle hears what matters. The footprint is consistent with Leah's size. Consistent. Not confirmed. But consistent is the closest thing to a scream in this case. Hannah is brought in later, kept outside the taped-off alley, because you don't let a family member step into a room like that unless you want their life to split in two. Doyle speaks to her in the cold morning air, his breath visible, her face pale and raw. He tells her they found a room. He does not say cell. He does not say prison. He says room, because words have weight, and he can't afford to crush her with his own vocabulary. Hannah grips her coat with both hands. Was she there, she asks, as if her voice might summon a yes. Doyle holds her gaze. We don't know, he says. It's the truth. The truth is a knife. The room becomes a pivot point. It confirms the pattern, the basements, the service corridors, the bleach, the grease, without giving them the one thing they need, Leah. They start hammering on anyone connected to that building, contractors, security staff, cleaners, delivery drivers. The building manager swears no one has been down there in months. But a cleaner, after 2 hours of questioning, admits she noticed the door padlocked from the outside a while back. She assumed it was maintenance. Maintenance again, the magic word that turns suspicion into acceptance. They check who has access to the service door. The keys are kept in a box in the manager's office. But the manager admits, reluctantly, embarrassed, that the box code is written on a sticky note inside the drawer, because people kept forgetting. Doyle closes his eyes for a second, feeling the weight of human laziness like a physical force. A city can build tunnels and locks and cameras, and then it undoes itself with a sticky note. They pull building CCTV from the street entrance, not the basement, because there's no camera down there. Of course there isn't. Cameras cost money. Basements are forgotten. The footage shows people entering and leaving, a constant flow. But at 2:36 a.m. 2 nights before, a white unmarked van pauses at the curb. A man gets out, cap low, movements brisk. He carries something bulky wrapped in black plastic, too big for a toolbox, too awkward for rubbish. He wheels it on a small dolly through the side entrance, out of the camera's angle. 10 minutes later, he emerges alone and drives off. Doyle watches the clip again and again, until the edges of the screen blur. The man's face never turns fully. But his build, his gait, there's a familiarity that makes Doyle's stomach harden. It looks like Martin Keene. It looks like the dented van, though the camera angle can't confirm. It looks like their ghost, moving through London like he owns the wiring. They circulate the clip internally. A transport inspector recognizes the van's dent pattern from the earlier depot incident, softened, but visible. A mechanic suggests the model. They pull registration possibilities again, but this time it's worse. The plate is obscured by glare. The image yields only 2 clear characters. 2 characters are nothing in London. 2 characters are a curse. And then the case twists in a way that feels like someone leaning in to whisper. That night, After the basement discovery makes the evening news, Hannah receives a voicemail from an unknown number. The voice is distorted, digitally altered, genderless, a cold mechanical rasp that refuses identity. It says only this: stop digging, or she stops breathing. Hannah brings it to Doyle, shaking so hard she can barely hold her phone. The station's audio tech cleans it, strips background noise, hunts for anything real beneath the distortion. They find faint sounds under the voice, an electrical hum, rhythmic, like a fan motor. A distant metallic clank that repeats every few seconds. A low-frequency rumble like trains. The tech plays it again, and Doyle's mind snaps to the tunnels. Not the old brick service corridors. Something deeper. Something near active lines. They consult transport for London again, this time not for maps, but for sound signatures. Engineers listen and argue. One suggests a ventilation fan used in certain underground maintenance rooms. Another says the metallic clank could be a cable tensioner. They narrow it down to a cluster of possible locations: equipment rooms near the district line, older sections with specific ventilation units. It's not precise, but it's a direction, and direction is oxygen. They stage another operation, larger, coordinated, dangerous. Teams spread along underground access points. Engineers accompany them with keys and radios. They open doors marked authorized only and descend into spaces the public never imagines exist. Rooms full of humming machinery, walls sweating condensation, air thick with grease and ozone. The sound is constant, a mechanical heartbeat. Doyle moves through it with torchlight and anger, feeling like he's walking inside a living beast. They search one equipment room after another. Each time, nothing. No Leah. No Martin. Just machines. Just echoes. Each empty room tightens the knot in Doyle's chest, because every empty room is proof of how much space there is in London to hide someone. How many doors can be locked? How many corridors can be cleaned? How many basements can be ignored? In one room near a service junction under Tower Hill, an officer finds something small wedged behind a conduit. A scrap of paper folded tight, damp at the edges, smeared with grime. They open it carefully. Inside are 3 words, written in shaky pen, the ink bleeding as if the paper was held in a sweaty palm. Hannah, I tried. Doyle's hands go cold. He stares at the words and feels time slow. It could be Leah's handwriting. It could be a trap. They rush it to Hannah anyway, because you don't sit on a message that might be your sister's last attempt to reach you. Hannah reads it and makes a sound that isn't a sob or a scream, but something torn from deeper than either. She swears it's Leah's writing. She swears. She's certain. And certainty in grief is both powerful and fragile. Forensics compare the note to Leah's notebooks. The letter shapes are similar. The pressure pattern is consistent. But the note is too smeared for absolute confirmation. Again, the case offers them almost, that sharp-edged almost that keeps people awake at night. Doyle stands at the mouth of the service corridor, after the search ends, listening to the distant rumble of trains above and below, feeling London's enormous indifference pressing down like concrete. He can't escape the image of Leah in that Spitalfields basement, barefoot, pressing her foot into damp concrete, clawing at a door, writing please on a wall with shaking hands, then being moved again like cargo wrapped in black plastic. He can't escape the idea that Martin Keene didn't just run from them, he played them, slipping through access points like a man slipping through thoughts, leaving just enough evidence to keep the story alive, to keep Hannah tortured, to keep Doyle chasing. And the most terrifying thing isn't that Leah is missing. It's that the city can accommodate her missingness. It's that London has enough hidden rooms, enough forgotten corridors, enough locked doors with codes written on sticky notes, enough people who assume maintenance means safety, that a human being can become a secret without the city even flinching. Doyle turns his collar up against the cold and watches commuters hurry along the pavement above the tunnel exit, faces in their phones, shoes clicking in rhythm, and he thinks about the single shoe that started this, the scuffed heel that became a question, and how now the question has multiplied. How many doors did she pass through? How many hands touched her scarf? How many times did she think she was about to be found? How many times did she write a word on a wall and pray someone would read it in time? And how long can a city keep swallowing a person before it starts to choke?